Me want my dad, give me to my wee, wee. Me want my dad, give me to my wee. Me want a god, give me to my wee.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the mic, the only place where beautiful people are kept. I have Nigel on the sound, and one of the historian.
Yeah, I'm a historian. Live in Ipswich. I've lived in Ipswich for the last 30 odd years now. 34 years, 36 years.
So when you say historian, Nigel, are you a historian of history itself, or your specialism is Ipswich?
Well, I've always been fascinated in history, and I enjoyed studying history when I was at school, and I always used to like to go to historical buildings and historical places to see what I could learn when I was growing up. And then when I retired from the main job that I had a few years ago, I took the opportunity to go to the University of Suffolk and study a history degree.
Oh, wow.
And I currently work at the Hold, which is where the Suffolk Archives are held.
Yeah.
And they have exhibitions in the building, but they also have the majority of the archives that are held by Suffolk County Council.
Oh, cool.
So there's
pretty interesting information.
There's about 12 and a half, 13 miles of shelving.
Wow.
So there's a lot of books and a lot of paperwork, millions and millions of sheets of paper down there, and it's full of people's lives' history, and it's sort of, whether it's local parish councils, local churches, local people, local businesses.
Yeah. You can hear your accent's very Ipswich, a real kind of, you've got quite a strong accent. Were you born in Ipswich?
I wasn't, no. I was actually born in Colchester.
Okay.
Which
is the oldest?
Which is the oldest. That's the oldest town in England. It predates the Roman invasion.
Crazy.
So the Gauls in northern France were dealing with people from Colchester about 100 years before the Romans came. So Colchester's got a long history itself.
Yeah,
but then I've lived in Ipswich a long while. I'm still called one of the newcomers by some people I know.
Oh, really?
Because
I guess historically you are a newcomer.
That's it, right.
Yeah, definitely.
And obviously I was never born here. I enjoy Colchester. I still go over there quite regularly. I've still got family there.
Yeah.
But I do like Ipswich as well, and I've lived here a long while. And I think Ipswich's history is interesting from a totally different perspective. There's very little Roman history in Ipswich, a little bit, but not an awful lot.
Yeah.
But there is an enormous amount of medieval history, and the settlement dates back to the early Saxon period.
Yeah, Anglo-Saxons. Yeah.
So you've got 6th and 7th century Saxons building the town initially.
Yeah.
And then you've got a really big medieval history to Ipswich, and then all of that goes away, and then it comes back again in the 19th century with the Industrial Revolution.
Cool.
Nice.
Cool. You have so much knowledge inside that brain.
I'm happy to be challenged on it if I get anything wrong.
Okay. What can you tell us a little bit about your name, Nigel? Because apparently it's going extinct.
It is. Unfortunately, people don't christen their children Nigel anymore. No. And if it's all down to one man called Nigel, I'm really disappointed because us Nigels have been annoying for years.
What about Farage? I'm feeling like, because it was like...
I don't know anything about Farage.
Well, Nigel Farage, apparently 2020, when kind of he was like in the midst of the public eye.
Yeah, I've never met him. His surname sounds very foreign to me.
Oh.
It sounds very French.
Well, yeah.
I mean, my surname is Smith, and it's one of the more common surnames in the UK.
Yeah.
And there's nothing special about it. The name Nigel, it's got a sort of mixed history because it was a name that was invented almost, I think, effectively. It's a mixture of French and...
Nigel. I would imagine it being L, like...
Well, it doesn't directly translate into French or from French. So Nicolas, which is Nicholas, and Nigel or Nigel, which is about as close as you can get. Yeah. But it's so possibly a little bit of French in there. It was popularised by Sir Walter Scott, I think it was.
Okay.
Who wrote a book about the fortunes of Nigel in about the 17th century.
So that's quite interesting.
Nigel, you know
so
too
bring back
much,
the
man.
Nigels. Bring back the Nigels.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
For anyone out there, having a baby, name your boy Nigel.
Oh, I would. I think I'd probably call him Nigel.
Really? What, like Neville?
That's it.
Never
You
really.
can't have too many of the right name.
No, exactly. Nigel, love it. There you go. See, new idea.
Everybody should name their kids as Nigel.
Even if it's a girl, I mean, it doesn't matter nowadays, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. Here we go, Edmar. Edmar's missus
he's
is having a baby.
Edmar, he's going to have a baby.
See?
So you got the name now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nigel.
Nigel.
Yeah,
Because-
maybe.
yeah. Well, you tend to find in countries that were colonies
Yeah.
that names like Nigel still live on quite strongly. So because some of the local population used anglicised names.
Yeah.
And someone was talking about it on television recently and was saying there's so many Ruperts and Edmonds and Nigels out in the colonies still.
Quite royalist.
It
Latin
is.
name,
I
isn't
I
it?
know the Ruperts. There's one of the wealthiest people called the Ruperts, I think, in South Africa.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is the surname? Is the surname the
Yeah,
Ruperts?
the Ruperts.
Yeah,
Ruperts,
yeah.
yeah.
They're so wealthy, man. It's like they got so much money.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't even imagine lives like that, can
Oh,
you? What it's
man.
like. That's just like a different
Yeah,
world.
as you
for
say,
us.
a lot of
So
colonies.
when you talk to Commonwealth countries, obviously today, and they're making their own way in the world, that's still one of the ways in which they inadvertently still link in with each other. Because they've adopted these names. And I mean, as much as there's a lot of other languages that have become part of English, they've adopted sort of names that were English or have been English and are no longer fashionable over here.
I feel like we're going to learn a lot today.
What's wrong?
I feel like we're going to learn a lot. I'm not sure I'm going to remember it all, but I really feel like my brain's taking on a lot of information right now. This is great.
This is a living AI.
Yeah. See, you're the sort of person that, I don't know what you feel or how you feel the future's going to look in 20 years' time, but you're the sort of person that they're going to say, we still need him to teach the AIs this stuff.
Well, one of the things I enjoy about working where I do at the moment, down at the Hold and in the archives there, is that every day I go there, I learn something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And because there is so much still so much that we've forgotten as a society.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it's not just me, but we're all of us. We things that were important 100 years ago.
Yeah.
They get published in the paper, and then of the day, and then they get forgotten.
Yeah.
But that's like social media now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Big news, then it's no news. Once it's the next day, move on.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm looking. We've got papers for the last 300 years down there.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm doing at the moment is going through papers from the 1860s.
Wow.
Because
Jesus
Christ. I found a really interesting
What's
story.
wrong with you?
Well, the 1860s are just as interesting as the 2024s.
Right.
Are they as interesting as the 1960s, though?
Probably.
Are
They
they?
are. There's some really strange people in the 1860s.
There's some really strange people in Ipswich and in the world, to be honest. So I think it's
Well, I mean, I'm really. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I will do just to give you a flavour.
Just give us.
I'm researching a group of people that were called the Volunteer Rifles,
okay.
What?
and there was fear of French invasion in 1860,
Right.
and Napoleon had just attacked the Austrians
Yeah.
in northern Italy.
Right.
So they'd had a bit of a ding-dong down there. The Austrian Empire versus the French Empire in northern Italy. And it starts off, it doesn't last very long, but it starts off a lot of fear in this country about the French. If they're going to attack the Austrians down there, they might come and try and invade us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so because of that, they set up what they call the Volunteer Rifle Associations, or Volunteer Rifle Corps.
Volunteer.
What, so like people that don't know how
all
to
over
use
the
them?
UK, there's a call to arms, and they say that because the British Army is mostly in India at that time, because there was an Indian mutiny the year before, and now there's an Indian famine going on. So the British Army's mostly gone to India
To help.
out with resolving the problems out there. So there's very little defence of the UK at that time.
So who were the volunteers?
Well, the volunteers were the ordinary local people.
Really?
So within a few months of a national emergency being declared in London,
Yeah.
There's about 20,000 people in uniforms they paid for to have made themselves.
Wow.
They're being issued with rifles, and they're doing training in local drill halls.
My goodness.
They're doing marching around the towns.
Still just men, yeah?
Mostly, well, it would have been men at that time.
Yeah.
The ladies were usually escorted to somewhere nice where they could stand and watch the proceedings.
Oh, okay.
So,
How lovely.
but that's the life you're leading at that time.
Yeah.
So that's not me being sexist.
It's just
that's the way it was reported.
Yeah.
So these men are training twice a week in drill, and they're marching. Say, as each town has a group of 80 to 100 men that have been drilled to a reasonable standard. And they've got the uniforms issued, they've got the rifles issued.
Yeah.
They're then marching around the town, going to the church and having a church parade, and then having a big dinner afterwards with plenty of beer and tobacco.
Oh, lovely.
So that's the sort of thing they were doing at the time.
Crazy.
And I'm sure they were
But
having...
did they ever have to use their rifles? Nothing ever happened?
No, it's a phony war.
Yeah.
But the fact that they did all of that so quickly, within 6 months to a year, they'd done all of that. And it showed that there was a lot of passion in defending England at that time.
Yeah.
And for the next 30 years, that Volunteer Rifle Association keeps going.
Right.
So you said people were like really weird. There's
Well,
some really weird people. What do you mean
One
by
of the
that?
things
At the time, isn't
at
it?
the time, but one of the things they thought was okay to do as
Right.
part of that was they started to have practice skirmishes. So
Hold on.
Skirmish is like when you go.
skirmishes
you go
is like
out
when you have a little bit of a shindig against each other.
Yeah.
Now these are men, bearing in mind they're carrying rifles.
So real bullets.
They've got bayonets fitted to the end of these rifles.
Oh, my goodness.
They've been issued with live rounds of ammunition.
Yeah.
And now they're going to fight each other for fun.
Oh my god.
And they're running through the back streets and in through people's gardens.
Brilliant. So safe. So safe.
Where's health and safety then? At the
This has
time?
been reported in the newspaper as well of the day.
Oh my God.
In Framlingham, yesterday, I read it for the first time yesterday. In Framlingham, one afternoon in August 1860, over 1,000 rounds of live ammunition was fired.
Was fun.
Was anyone hurt? Fired.
They
Fired?
Fired.
Yeah.
As part of this skirmishing. Nobody was hurt.
Nobody's hurt.
Seriously.
Seriously.
No.
That's insane.
Not at all.
Can you imagine how much it would kick off now or something like
Can you
that?
imagine? Can you imagine 200 people running around Ipswich with guns and not having a bit of a problem with it?
Well, we'd have all sorts of things going out, wouldn't we?
The olden days is like...
Sounds quite fun. to be fair.
My French, they didn't give a shit.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, but there's...
They could care less, could they?
Well, they did what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
This is before the
Laws
Wild. This is
were
before
not
the
as-
Wild West.
Yeah.
This is 20 years before the
That's
Wild West in
crazy.
North America.
And what was the policing like back then? Like,
Well,
obviously,
there were police.
There's no police there.
You'd have in Ipswich at that time. You'd have probably had one officer and about 8 or 9 policemen for the whole town
crazy
of Ipswich.
But then there were less people.
And then in Framlingham, probably about two police
Yeah,
constables.
yeah.
And they were probably running around with the rest of them.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So everybody was policing themselves then.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but the policing was mostly done by the local magistrates
Right.
and the local landowners and their men. So it was self-policing. I mean, this is before a day when you relied on state policing.
Yeah.
And so people sort things out for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Crazy times.
You're shocking me, Nigel.
But
to
it
be
sounds
honest.
like.
But the MP,
Sometimes
the local
this is
MP
fun,
was
isn't it?
the local MPs were involved. It wasn't just the local nutters involved. The local MPs were involved.
What's the craziest, like the most crazy piece of information you've got, like historically about this kind of area?
Would be nice to know.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about
When
that
you
a little
think,
bit.
what's the weirdest thing you've?
Well, I think it's a very different era because say the police force was only set up in the 1830s.
Yeah.
So before then, everything is totally self-governing. I liked some of the stories around Aldborough.
Yeah.
And I did my dissertation for the university around life in Aldborough.
Yeah. Beautiful,
And
beautiful
place.
It is.
And but very eccentric as well.
Yeah, and very affluent. Very.
One of the things they didn't like in one of the things they did like in Aldborough was people visiting Aldborough.
Yeah.
So in 1859,
So you get loads of money from tourism.
in 1859,
Yeah.
there's a railway line built to Leiston.
Yeah.
And by 1860, the railway line has been extended to Aldborough. And so at the weekends, they're getting train loads of visitors visiting.
Right.
And some of these are rich and some of these are very poor. But for 5 shillings, anybody could catch the train from London.
Crazy.
25 pence.
So what's that equivalent to?
That's 25 pence.
25p.
5 shillings.
So you get a return ticket.
I don't even know. I should know these things.
5 shillings.
I want to
That's a long
talk
way.
to you about money as well.
Well, you could get a return ticket from London.
Yeah.
And you had to change at Colchester because this is in the days of before a fully integrated railway service.
Wow.
So the train.
So you're going from Ipswich?
So from London to Colchester is with one company.
Yeah.
But it's
So that's Liverpool
Street.
Street.
It wasn't. I don't think it was even called Liverpool Street Station in those days, because it's before some of the big end stations were built.
Yeah.
But you could get from London, North London certainly, to Colchester using one railway station.
Yeah.
One railway company.
Yeah.
And then at Colchester, if you notice, the platforms were end to end at Colchester.
Yeah.
And that's because one of the platforms was built by a different company to the other one. So for about 10 years, when they were owned by different companies, there was no through service.
Yeah.
So you had to get off the train at Colchester and then get onto a train by the other company to carry on your journey.
Yeah.
And so what was called the Eastern Union Railway was paid for by men that lived in the Ipswich and Suffolk area. And they built the train from Colchester to Ipswich and then going on to Woodbridge and Halesworth.
Yeah.
And they also built branch lines to... it was a branch line originally to Stowmarket.
Yeah.
And another one to Sudbury and another one to Clacton. Okay. So they're all local branch lines that they built as part of that company being developed.
Okay, so you get to Aldborough.
When you get to Halesworth, you have to get a local branch line again to get to
so you connect
to Aldborough.
Crazy.
And then you can walk along the promenade.
Yeah, and anyone can do that. So you've got this nice mix.
Okay, but you could walk along the promenade.
Yeah. But
some of the locals didn't like the third-class customers off the railway walking along the promenade.
Okay, so what did they do about that?
Because they said they were very common.
Yeah.
There's these people from London that were very common, and they used to say things like, "Hello, mate. Here, this is my girlfriend. I'll just take her out to the seaside for the day. What do you think? What do you think of her?"
Yeah, not real enough. Too real.
There's actual cartoons that appear in the Punch magazine.
Right.
Madness.
About exactly things like that.
Yeah.
The trouble we go into places that were considered very exclusive.
So that massive class divide as well between people.
Yeah. And if you had the audacity to take a bicycle along to Aldborough and cycle along the promenade, you could be stopped and fined because the locals didn't like
I know I shouldn't ask this one.
No, go for it.
So what about people? People look like me.
Oh, no.
There were none.
No.
To be honest.
Really?
No.
This is a white society that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Even in World War II.
Yeah.
When they were discussing I've looked at this as well, when they were talking about the black Americans coming over as part of the United States Army Air Corps to build the runways and the infrastructure for the airfields.
Right.
There was only about 8,000 black people living in England at that time.
At the time.
In total.
Crazy.
And most of those would have been Indians.
Oh, hello.
There were some West Indians in this area because Ipswich was one of the unusual towns because of the port facilities here. There were sailors and there were traders living in this area.
Yeah.
And they say there were Indians because out at Brandon, or near Brandon, there's a big house out near Brandon. And one of the last Maharishis of India was in exile there.
Oh, wow.
There's a chap called Dulip Singh.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Where do you know all this stuff?
I know, it's like where he's doing it all. So why was he exiled?
Right, so Dulip Singh was at about 13 or 14 years of age.
Yeah.
He inherited the empire.
Wow, too young.
From his father.
Yeah.
And he had
So like Deontay now,
So
inheriting the empire.
Yeah.
Never a good idea to inherit stuff that young.
No.
Right,
I don't know enough. I've no idea what's going on.
He was advised to go to war against the British Empire.
Right.
He was advised.
So he declares war on the British Empire. Never a good idea at that time. But he did, and then he very quickly sued for peace because he realised after a little while it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was never going to win.
Yeah.
Now, part of the condition... and he also, at that time, decided to give Queen Victoria, who was fairly new on the throne...
Yeah.
one of the prized gems as part of the settlement.
Okay.
Which is the Koh-i-Noor diamond.
Wow.
So I don't know if you've heard of that.
I haven't.
No.
Right, the Koh-i-Noor diamond.
No. I feel rubbish.
It's now disputed. The ownership of it is now disputed.
Okay.
But he gave it to the Queen Victoria as part of the settlement at that time.
Yeah.
And they split it in half, and half of it's in the crown jewels that the king was wearing last year.
Okay.
Normally contain
It's
parts
in
of the crown.
It's in the
of
crown. Yeah.
Cool.
That's a Koh-i-Noor diamond.
And where's the other half?
Half of it's in the front of the crown, and it's about that big. It's about an inch and a
Yeah.
half long and about an inch wide.
Yeah.
And the other half is in the sceptre.
Okay. But that he holds.
So when he
onto.
holds the sceptre
the
up, there's a
sceptre.
huge diamond in the top of it.
Yeah.
Well, there are two halves. There's other bits,
Wow.
fragments that are incorporated into the jewels as well.
So then he was just exiled because of that.
Well, he
Or
was
that
sent.
was a separate.
Well, he was sent into exile, and the best place to put him, they thought, was Suffolk.
Of course.
So
Why is that? Why?
Because in 1850, Suffolk was
Out the way.
out the way.
Yeah.
It wasn't the front line of anything. It was the
No.
back end of everywhere.
Crazy.
So that's where the...
So he lives
So
at.
he lived out his days here.
Well, they gave him a house which was called Elvedon Hall. It's still there today. You can
Is
visit
it?
Elvedon Hall
I know
in
of
summer.
Elvedon, but I don't know the hall.
Well, it's just on the outskirts of Elvedon.
Okay.
And
learning a lot.
he's now worshipped by the Sikhs as a hero, because he later on in his life he protests against his imprisonment.
But definitely, because as a young teenager, being advised to do something, you then shouldn't really take responsibility for
But it defined
or
it-
accountability.
but it defined his life.
The person's telling you, advising you, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
Where's their accountability for
Yeah.
what they've
That's right.
done?
Yeah, well,
Who were they? Like in all of this, they just got away with
Probably he
it.
didn't want it to do that.
Probably not.
Yeah.
No,
Probably
because they
didn't
had,
want it.
the UK had a good relationship.
Yeah.
he certainly. If you look at early photographs of the royal family,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you often see a tall young man standing in the background with a turban on,
Yeah.
lots of pearls and diamonds,
Yeah.
and at a time when everyone wore top hats. He's standing there with a turban on.
Okay.
And because he was still respected as a member of the royal family,
Yeah.
not their royal family, but as a royal family.
Royal family.
And when they had Ascot and when they had race days around England,
Yeah.
he was often there with
took
members
him.
of the royal family. So he was
So
treated well,
he was treated
So
like
it's
royalty. He lived in a royal building, like a
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah.
building, beautiful grounds.
but he was a prisoner. In fact, well,
But
he
he was a
wasn't.
prisoner.
Well, he
So
was
they
a prisoner
wanted
of
to keep him.
sorts,
They wanted to keep him close to him.
What they wouldn't let him do is go back to India.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
He eventually lives in Paris.
Right.
In his later life, he lives in Paris.
So they
But if you want to know more about
keep your
Julep
enemies
Singh,
close.
it's a fascinating history.
Yeah, sounds really cool.
Yo, man, Nigel, you're an AR.
Have you got an
human
explosive
aid.
sound? Because
I think so. I think so.
Mind blown,
I think so.
mind blown.
We shall give you a lion sound. Like, you know what
that's what your brain's doing. That's what your brain is doing.
Jesus, Nigel. Yeah, let's
Well,
go.
I see my role partly as I'm not trying to justify what was done. I'm just saying this is what happened,
Yeah.
but that's
and
history.
these are the people
It's
that were
history.
affected.
That's history.
That is
Yeah,
history.
yeah.
Yeah.
that's history.
I can't judge what happened because that was they made the decisions. I didn't
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
the decisions.
Yeah, for me, it sounds it's so fascinating.
Yeah, me
it's,
too.
It's something like, I'm coming from outside and coming here and learn all this.
Yeah.
It means that in the house there was some problems as well.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean, one of the things you mentioned when I first got here was what were the ladies doing when all these
Please don't say cleaning.
Yeah.
all this marching was going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, in the 1860s, one of the things that was going on was aristocratic women were complaining about the fact they weren't allowed to do anything.
Okay, so the
And
upper class.
So the upper class.
Yeah.
Now, one of their families living at Aldborough
Yeah.
was the I can't remember the name now. It's and the Garrett family.
Yeah.
Now, there's a chap living at Aldborough who's called Newson Garrett, and he's a member of the Garrett family that was also living at Leiston. And his eldest daughter, Elizabeth, wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
And this is at a time when no women in England were allowed to study at
No
university.
education. Yeah.
They were allowed home education to make sure they were a good wife and, could
And you had to
could do
look after
useful
their
things
husbands.
like looking after the husband
And dress well.
and make dresses as well. And all that sort of stuff. But they weren't allowed to. It was considered risque to let women study because their brains weren't sufficient capacity to do so. That was the official.
Would you live in those days then?
No, I would have been probably hung as a witch or something.
Well, some were in a previous life, but she challenged that, and she ends up going to. She went to Paris and got a doctorate, and she got a doctorate.
Cool. A little bit like the Malala.
Which is
story.
why when you go up to the hospital in Ipswich, if you go to the main hospital, Heathrow Road Hospital, it's called the Garrett Anderson Centre.
Yes,
Garrett
it
Anderson.
is.
Because it's named after her.
Well, thanks very much for that information.
right.
I would never have known that.
Yep.
That's
So
really
because
cool.
Anderson was her husband's name.
Anderson, the new
But
building,
she's such
isn't
an
it?
important person because she not only challenges the inability for women to study and proves that she can do it and that she does it, but she also gets involved in local politics before she was allowed to vote.
Amazing.
And the first year that they allowed aristocratic women to vote in this country was 1907.
Yeah.
And she is on the ballot paper at the next election in Aldborough. And in 1908, she becomes the first female mayor in the country.
That's crazy.
Not just in Aldborough, but in the whole country.
It's still quite sad, though, to say, the aristocratic women, they were allowed. But then what about all the other women that were just...
Well, this is the biggest problem.
I guess they weren't maybe as educated and therefore could have been manipulated or controlled. Their votes could have been controlled by other people outside.
But voting in this country is a series of concessions.
Yeah.
Because if you 100 years before that,
Yeah.
only men with property and men with money were allowed to vote at all.
Oh, okay. So just
So it wasn't just
had to be certain particular
so
men, not all
so
men.
gradually they roll back the who's allowed to vote.
So Niger, that's kind of like similar like Dubai, isn't it? Because women, they're not allowed to vote.
No.
Well, a lot of countries are going down these journeys where the people that run the country and in charge of the country have to recognise that other people have got rights too.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
And
just
it takes a
taking
long
time.
while. It takes a long while to
Yeah.
to concede these rights. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of countries are dealing with these issues in different stages of recognising that.
That's it. They're catching on slowly.
But it takes years.
It does.
And religion and money are always getting in the way of those sort of things.
It's hard, isn't
money
it? Because there's a bar that's set, but then the bar moves all the time, doesn't
Even
it?
people that concede that there's a social injustice don't necessarily do much about it because it affects, it could affect the power that the people with money have got.
Yeah.
Or the religious ideals that
And
they're
then
working
for
to.
people to then say, yes, you can do this, you could do that, it's going to take some persuasion, and there's probably a little bit of discussion about...
money, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't ignore it.
You can't.
We can't live without it.
No, because one of the biggest problems with money in this country is not just the fact that some people have got it and some people haven't. Yeah. Even the people that have got it judge each other differently because there's what they call old money in this country and new money.
Yeah.
So if you're old money, then you come from a family with a long line of being involved in power and influence.
Yeah.
Whereas people that have made money out of computing
Or something new.
Or something new technology in the last 50 years don't get treated quite as respectfully as the old money.
Which in fact they should, because they've kind of like worked harder. It hasn't just fallen into their hands.
Yeah.
They've actually worked harder to get
so.
that.
Yeah. So there's always been that aspect as well.
So the old money, they have kind of like a club.
Well, the old money.
I guess it is like
Whoever the old money are, and
Yeah.
it varies a lot depending on who you talk to.
Yeah.
That eventually, the old money has less money because they spend it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they may be old money, but they
Yeah.
might not have as much
Yeah.
power or money as they used to.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's probably quite a lot of jealousy. I would
So
have
there's a
thought.
little bit of jealousy there because some of this new money
Yeah.
on new technology
They just came in.
keeps pace with inflation as well and all sorts of things like
Of
that.
course it does. Yeah, yeah.
So you normally end
Making
up
money.
with a little bit of the new money marrying into the old money as well at some point.
Yeah, man, because them people marry each other.
Of course they
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Of course they do.
Oh yeah, they do.
I don't want to marry them.
Yeah, but
Yeah, for one reason.
do they not have any say in that?
No, they don't.
So they would look at me like, what club is on then? Which club is in? And then they discover I'm on
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
It's difficult.
That
I'd imagine.
class.
I've never had a lot.
Yeah.
I've never had a lot of money myself. So
come on, Nigel.
No, I've got enough to live on. But
Yeah.
come on, Nigel. Look at you, man. I think
You know
you're-
so much.
He's,
Yeah, but
he's a
knowing-
billionaire, this guy.
Knowledge.
knowing things doesn't make you rich.
No.
It
It makes some people rich.
can do.
Yeah.
You've got to exploit it, haven't
Do
you?
you know? Do you know?
Come
lots
on,
of rich
Nigel.
people?
I look at you as a billionaire.
I don't know. No, I don't know.
No. See, there's a lot of rich people living around this Suffolk area that probably don't know anything
You've
about
got to
it.
network with the right people as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not very good at sucking up to people either.
And why should you?
You shouldn't have to.
We
should you?
shouldn't have to treat people differently. But I would like,
He's an old money.
yeah. Well, in other ways. Yeah, yeah. What do you think about the subject of money anyway? Because personally, I think, people are trying to like push it, aren't they, to the side so we don't use cash anymore. And like for me,
I'm quite happy.
important.
I'm quite happy not to use cash.
Really?
It does,
No.
but I don't do anything that worries me about using my card.
It's more like then
They track you.
everything's you're on the radar. Like
You're on
everyone.
the radar. Everything. They know everything.
What about like giving someone a tip in a restaurant? Like when you used to, I want to give you a tip. I don't want to give everyone else a tip. I want to give you a tip. Here's some cash.
Yeah, but
Can't do that anymore.
But in a lot of restaurants, they're not allowed to keep that anyway.
Yeah, good point.
So
But not always.
you give a fiver or a couple of quid to the person who served you.
Yeah.
When they get back into the kitchen, they have to put that in the pot.
But then it's all
communal pot.
taxed if you don't pay it in cash.
Well, that's it, because it's but this is it, isn't it? The only reason that people go on about the value of cash is because it's directly or indirectly they're supporting the black economy, I suppose.
Yeah.
And
So people then have to pay tax on
well,
it.
you're going to have to declare it at some point.
Yeah.
The problem is all the people who've got money, they find a way not to pay tax. You
Yeah.
and I, Nigel, we have to pay tax.
Yeah.
And this is, we just...
Find loopholes.
Yeah, they find loopholes and they just get on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you and I would just have to go and pay every single penny. Every single penny.
Yeah, we
And
do.
how fair is that?
Well, I pay tax on what I earn.
Yeah.
And always have done.
Yeah.
I've always been PAYE. So
Yeah.
I've always paid for things as I've gone along.
Yeah.
It's never been a big issue for me.
No.
Right.
My dad was self-employed when he worked, and so it was his decision how much he declared,
Yeah.
Right.
because he was a
And that's the
self-employed
way of
trader.
people get around it.
But how you continue that on any scale today, I've got no idea.
No.
Because
Things have
it's
changed
difficult.
as
It's
well.
difficult to do it if everyone else is declaring it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're selling something that you bought and now selling it on eBay
Yeah.
or on one of the other social media platforms
like
for
Vinted and
for a
stuff.
few tens of quid, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But if you're selling hundreds of items on there, then it's a job not to declare it, I would have thought.
I don't even know how they get
You've
around
already
it.
paid tax on it. That's what's
Yeah.
crazy, isn't it?
I know, but
You've already bought it. You're selling something you own.
I know it annoys people, but
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult to avoid it because
Yeah.
though
always
if you've
skimming
got
away,
if you've
isn't
got
it?
hundreds of financial transactions going through a Facebook site or
Yeah.
an eBay account, I don't know how you avoid declaring it.
No. Crazy.
I thought you
Let's-
know. I thought
Let's
you.
break the seriousness. Let's break the seriousness. Nigel, have you got any good jokes for us? Any good jokes? Probably won't get it, but just in case.
Well, I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, we'll come back to you.
I'm rubbish at remembering jokes.
Are you?
I need to write down prompts for jokes because I
Yeah.
forget them.
Okay.
Yeah, mine are always really short-winded jokes, like knock jokes.
Come on, give us one.
Oh, they're really childish as well because my children love them.
No, but give us one then. Probably.
Knock,
You
knock,
and I,
knock.
Me and I.
Knock knock.
What's that?
Puh. Puh.
But
Do you know what to do
who?
You said poo. See what I mean? How that is terrible, isn't it? But my children love it. They love it.
They love it. Love all of that.
Your joke?
I ain't got one.
Oh my goodness. Cedric. Edma, got any going? No.
No?
See, I'm quite similar to you. If it's a long-winded joke,
I
the
hear
one that's got
jokes.
like a really good end, I need like...
I hear jokes and I think I've got to remember that.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember it.
No.
I can remember dates.
You can remember so much.
Well, the thing is with history is it's about remembering chronology.
Yeah.
How things fit
So
together.
you see it. You almost see the
So
timeline.
with history, I build up lines of things happening.
Yeah.
And I can remember. So the danger is I talk too much. I try not to talk too much because one of the things you very quickly learn with history, especially in places like the Hole, where there's lots of very closely packed, is you go looking for one thing, and by the time you found that, you found 3 or 4 others.
Yeah.
And they're all more interesting than the thing you originally went looking for.
Yeah.
So you end up going down all these other rabbit holes.
Right.
You think, well, yeah, I know, I'll read about that, but I'll also read about this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And learn a bit more about them. So you can spend your whole life disappearing down those other avenues.
Getting stuck in the past.
You know what?
Yeah.
That's one thing I want to know.
Yeah.
We used to have a steel company up
Raven-
Necton.
Yeah, like near
Necton Road.
And an airport.
And an airport.
An airport, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, all is gone. I can't remember the name of the company.
Steelworks,
The
yeah.
Steelworks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
still-
well, the steelworks was cranes.
That
was it,
cranes.
Because they used to have
yes.
the big
Well,
crane that was there. Yeah.
Is
So-
that, sorry, Nigel. Is that up Necton, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's
Next to
where Cranes was.
Yeah.
Is now where the supermarkets are. So
Yeah,
there's
like
there's a
Waitrose
huge, great big Waitrose,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Lewis are built on the site.
Oh,
Yeah.
the Land Rover.
Yeah, Land Rover garage.
The Land Rover garage.
That's right.
Used to be- okay.
Yeah.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's all part of the redevelopment of that area.
Yeah.
Why did they not need the airport anymore? Do you know?
Well, the airport was always a private venture.
Oh, was it?
It opened in about 1928, I think
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was, something like that. And it was a private airport, but then it was requisitioned during the war. And it was owned, I think that some of the ground was owned by the council.
Okay.
It
Wasn't it your house?
So it was a grass,
No,
it was
no,
always a grass
There was
strip.
a farm. There was a farm where I am.
Oh, really?
It was a grass strip there.
Yeah.
So it was always a grass strip. It was never really developed commercially to a huge extent.
You're
it's
talking about Ravenswood, isn't he?
Well, where Ravenswood is where the
Okay, yeah,
airport
yeah.
was.
Ravenswood,
yeah.
Well, part of the old control tower and departure lounge is still there.
Right.
So it was listed because it was a really classic old-fashioned Art Deco
That's
building.
not the
So
well,
when
the
you-
children's centre and the
That's
doctors.
it. That's
and-
it.
Yeah,
So you've
is
got
that
this.
it that goes all the way across
So
the top?
that's what's left. Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
Oh,
So that's
that
all
was-
that's left. Yeah.
That's
So
madness.
That's
but the whole of the field behind it, which is now Ravenswood Estate,
Yeah.
was basically the airstrip.
Crazy.
So it was built, and it was there was flying clubs operated out there. They used to do parachute dropping on a Saturday afternoon
really?
and all this sort of thing.
Right, well, this is the old money people.
Old money people.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I remember there was one chap that went to court because he wanted to jump out of an aircraft from Ipswich Airport about 40 years ago without a parachute because he said God would look after him, therefore he didn't need to.
Really? I can imagine something like this.
And they wouldn't let him do it.
No, God. Why on earth not?
There is no justice in this world,
No,
you see.
I know, exactly.
Why did they not let him do it?
No, you gotta repeat that one. I love
know.
that.
Yeah.
That's a true story.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
That is madness.
just
Yeah.
he believes that
God's
God-
gonna, yeah, God's
God is
save
going to
me.
save him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and jump outside the airplane.
I'm imagining, like, what is he visualising? Is he visualising he's going to get the fall? Like, God's going to say, I'm going to let you have a good time. Shh, and then as you get to here, you'll just float. As you get to the bottom, you just hover. And then land lightly on your feet. What is that what he imagines? Like, what's going through his head?
I reckon he was on drugs.
Yeah.
I reckon he was on drugs. The most...
Yeah. Probably.
Triple
with all
times
that money.
ecstasy.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a joke. Have I got time to do my joke?
Yes! Yay!
We need that one, yes! Yeah.
So there's two people standing on the ledge of a really tall building.
All right.
So if you go down onto the waterfront in Ipswich, they could be standing on the tallest building down there, the really tall 24-storey building.
Yeah.
And they're standing right on the edge of the building, looking down onto the waterfront below them.
Yeah.
And one says, what are you going to do then? And the other one says, I think I'm going to jump. And he says, well, I'm going to jump, and if I jump, then when I get down just a few feet from the ground, I'll slow up, and because I believe, and I'll just walk away.
No.
Yeah.
And the other one said, that's never going to work. And he said, well, I'll show you then. And he does. He jumps off and he falls all the way down. And just before he gets to the ground, he slows up, steps down onto the pavement right by the waterfront and walks away.
Miracle.
And he stands there and the other bloke thinks, well, I could do that. I believe I could do that. He jumps off, falls down, and he hits.
Oh.
And that is a real hit on the ground.
Yeah.
And just then an angel appears. An angel from heaven appears and says, Gabriel, sometimes you're really out of order over this.
Awful. That's terrible.
Oh no, that's not one for the children.
No, definitely not. Definitely
That
not.
is hilarious.
I do like it though.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit sinister, a bit dark.
I'd forgotten about that until I was telling that true story about the airport.
There you go.
That's how they come back to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let them come.
Yeah.
We want more.
If there's more, brilliant. If there's any jokes about Ipswich, that would be amazing.
Oh, man.
Well, I made it about Ipswich. It could have been about anywhere.
Yeah.
But he just happened to be visiting.
Yeah, for the day. Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful, man. But then, where do you see us from here?
Yeah.
From then to now?
Yeah, like where do you see
that.
us going?
Yeah.
Well, Ipswich has changed so much in the last 500 or 600 years. And more than once, it's fundamentally changed.
Yeah.
So if you look at, so we were saying, it's nearly the 500th anniversary since the church. I was talking about this to someone earlier. It's nearly 500 years since all of the churches around here were Roman Catholic.
Right.
Yeah.
And in 1535-36, because Henry VIII decided he wanted to cut with Rome,
Right.
all of the churches around here were converted from being Catholic to being Church of England.
Yeah.
They were the only two religions around here at the time.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine such a fundamental change. But that happened across the whole country. But in Ipswich, Ipswich had 5 monasteries.
Right.
It had a shrine.
Right.
They were down near the Westgate. If you go down Westgate Street, down towards the Civic Drive. Before you get to Civic Drive, there's a little lane called Lady Lane.
Lady Lane and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a plaque on the wall there because there was a shrine to Our Lady of Ipswich there.
Oh.
It was a Madonna and Child inside a purpose-built shrine.
Yeah.
And hundreds and thousands of people a year used to have pilgrimages to that shrine.
Crazy.
And that was a Catholic shrine, and all of the 14 medieval churches in Ipswich, and they were all Catholic.
Yeah.
So
how many churches now?
How many churches? Yeah, that's what I want.
How many
Well,
are there now?
Well, there's 14 medieval ones. There was 5 monasteries in town at the time, and the monasteries obviously all got closed down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there might have been 6. I might be wrong. It might be 6, but it's certainly one of the monasteries was closed down by Cardinal Wolsey because he was going to build the college.
Okay.
Down near Stoke, where Stoke Bridge is.
Stoke Bridge, yeah.
Well, that's St. St. Peter's Church was originally called St. Peter and St. Paul, and it was a monastery.
Right.
And it was an Augustinian monastery going back to about the 11th century.
Cool.
And so on that site, and apparently the monks made a lot of money there. That was a premium site in the town to have a monastery.
The monks?
There was monks lived on...
Monks?
Monks lived in Ipswich. Oh, yeah, there was
Really?
on a number of sites in Ipswich, yeah.
What are you imagining as a monk?
As a monk.
I don't think you're... What are you thinking? Not like Tibetan.
Not the
No.
one I know. They
Shave their head.
No, these would have been. Well, there'd have been
I knew you were thinking that.
It would have been a mixture of monks. Some would have worn white vestments,
Right.
and they would have got up early in the morning to pray. These are Catholic monks,
Yeah.
Oh.
and then they would have gone to bed early. And some would have been lay monks, so they wore brown vestments, and they'd have done chores around the place and work on the estate if they had an estate, grown their own crops.
So you read my mind.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew what you were
She
thinking,
read
monks.
my mind.
He was thinking of these places where you go to to be peaceful and tranquil and not speak for days on end.
Well,
and,
some of
be
them would have
intellectual.
done. Some of them would have done that. Yeah.
They're similar in that way.
There were lots of monasteries in the UK up until that time.
They're similar.
But all of the monasteries were rich, though. The thing was, the monasteries was rich and the monarchy was poor at that time. And one of the reasons that Henry VIII was quite keen to
Take some money out.
to take over the church was that meant that he could actually rein in an awful lot of cash
Yes. A lot of money in religion.
that was in other people's hands.
Yeah.
That's why most of them, like European Catholics, they always keep it together.
Yeah.
Because I know, like,
There's quite a lot of wars between the church and the head of state.
yeah. Oh.
The,
Because I know most of the Polish people,
Yeah.
they're Catholic.
Okay.
They don't want to lose that.
No.
But the amount of money is involved in there.
Okay.
Every time they have to go in on Sundays or whatever and just donate.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, that makes churches very rich, especially Catholic churches, where
But the
where they're not allowed to have wives and children. So you've just got an order of monks or an order of priests that are celibate, or supposedly.
Do you believe that?
But it's
As
always
a
been
man.
it's been a point of contention ever since the medieval period.
Nigel, this
One of the people that I was really intrigued to find out about, and I didn't know much about him, was a Catholic priest who lived in Germany just over 500 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's named after... his name was Martin Luther.
Oh.
So
Okay.
people know Martin Luther mostly for being a black rights activist.
Exactly. Yeah.
The original Martin Luther,
Yeah.
or an earlier Martin Luther.
Not the original.
Well, I don't know if he was the original,
Okay, who knows?
but the earlier Martin
The
Luther.
earliest one.
Yeah.
The earliest one I know of was a Roman Catholic priest living in Germany. This is before Germany existed as a country. This is going back to the time when Germany was 270 states, but no central government.
Yeah.
And Martin Luther, the bit that he was a well qualified monk and theologian in the Catholic Church in the Holy Roman Empire, as it was called still in part at that time. And one of his problems was corruption within the church. And 500 years ago, he actually went to one of the meetings that they had.
Right.
And he nailed onto the door of where the meeting was being held a long list of his grievances with the Catholic Church.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you could say that was all. That was just over 500
Even
years
though he
ago.
was very corrupt,
He wasn't corrupt himself.
No.
He was he wanted to be the best he could be,
okay. So he wanted to like.
and he was appalled by
Yeah,
how
yeah.
much corruption there was
There
within
was.
the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And that's
So
500 years
corruption
ago.
comes back.
It's nothing
from-
new.
It's nothing new.
Oh
isn't
God,
it?
no. But you can hide it better because you weren't mobile phones, were there? People videoing you every time you did something wrong.
Oh.
You just get away with it.
Them-
If you know people in places, you just go, oh, don't. If you say anything,
We
you
see
know
that
what might happen.
he had to go into hiding after he said that because his life was threatened by the
Yeah.
church because
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
he
they
was
would hunt him as well.
So they went hunting
Oh,
for him.
yeah.
He was given shelter by a local family And for the next 30 years, he was protected by a local family.
Wow.
Lived in a castle, in retreat in this castle. But what happened in his name, this is what, he didn't set out to do this, but what happened in his name, was they ended up setting up the Lutheran Church.
Okay.
So the Lutheran Church, which is a Protestant church,
Okay. Yeah.
stems. So the Protestant movement effectively starts from that moment.
Because they went big.
Yeah.
They were big.
Yeah.
Well, but that starts to cause this massive divide within the church. So you've got the traditional Catholic Church, and then you've got the Protestant Church that evolves after Martin Luther denounced the corruption in the church. He said, well, he basically says there's nothing wrong with the basic religion.
Yeah.
It's the way in which the bishops and the priests run the church is the problem.
There's the corruption.
And he also says that your religion with God ought to be a personal relationship between you and what you believe in.
Right.
And it shouldn't be governed by somebody in the middle who tells you what to believe that you've got to pay money
We
for.
should all be doing the same thing.
Yeah. This is why, like, bear in mind, I come from a country where we were colonized by the British and the Dutch, which is South Africa.
Yeah.
Right. And right now, there's thousands of churches.
Yeah.
If
A lot of Dutch churches in South Africa. I've been there. It's a lovely country.
Yeah. If you want to make money, the only thing is to open church.
Really?
Yeah. And they scoop the money.
Oh, okay.
The money comes like floods of water.
Well, people are always looking for salvation, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Especially people with money and with dubious ways of achieving
Of
it.
trying to.
But the poor as well, they go there and, and just give the little what they have.
Yeah.
Instead
that's
of,
sad.
it's sad. It's really sad. And if you, like, I believe, probably allegedly, like a country called Rwanda, if you want to open a church, you need to have a certain degree.
Okay.
Allegedly, something like that. I don't know. But I've heard about that. You need to have a degree in something, church or something.
Theology, probably.
Yeah. You're not allowed to open a church.
No.
Because of the same problem what churches does to people. They take everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, this happens all over the world.
Yeah.
In America, a lot of churches are on TV.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And all that sort of
They're
evangelical
They're
churches.
putting out their daily,
messages, and you subscribe to it.
Me want my dad, give me to my wee. Me want my dad, give me to my wee. Me want my dad, give me to my wee.